and there's thousands of them all over the cell, so that wherever there's sugar in the blood, it goes like, oops, suck that in, suck. It's just sucking sugar into the cell like crazy, thousands all the time. But what if the cell slows down and it's not making very much protein? And then it's still got, all those thousands of receptors around the cell sucking sugar in, and it fills up, and it gets too much sugar in there. It starts making glycogen to store it. Okay, so now it's got storage. Now the storage units are all filled up in the cell, and so it's sitting there and it's slowly making proteins, but it's
How are you guys? We're excited to have you back. Looks like many of you are repeat viewers. Awesome. Today we're going to be talking about type 2, which is what we do every week. And then we typically sprinkle in some type 2 like basic webinars where we just go over what type 2 means. And then sometimes we will take some of your requests about a topic that you're really interested in. Maybe, anything from neuropathy or even heart health, or today, for example, we're going to be talking about what to do when you get stuck. And we had a lot of questions about this. And so there are some of you who are using the diabetes solution kit. Some of you have found wild success really quickly. Some of you found a more slow, gradual success that took a little while, but you are seeing the results, which is awesome. Some of you are stuck. And so we're going to really focus on that today, what to do when you're stuck, how to check all of the boxes to make sure you're doing things right. And, this can happen too when you move through the different phases of the book. So if you're in phase 2 and all of a sudden you're stuck, what do you do, right? What would Dr. Saunders recommend that you do? So hopefully he'll be hopping on here real soon. Otherwise, you're going to be stuck with me and Joe. Sorry. Oh, there he is. Yay. I almost had to do I did do my doctor teaching again, since, I am pretty much a doctor now. I was performing surgery live. So just kidding. That would be terrible. You don't want me to be a doctor.
In the old days, a good surgeon was one who could get in and out as quick as possible. So the quickest surgeon was the best surgeon, because they didn't have anesthesia. So you didn't have 8 hours to do surgery. You got to get in, do your thing, and get out.
Oh, yeah, I never thought about that. I always think it's interesting too. I'm sure maybe many of you realize this, but I didn't learn this till a couple of years ago. It was the place where they did surgery, and still is called, isn't it, the theater or something like that? Don't you call it that? Which always was weird to me, because I took a lot of acting classes, so that's not expected to happen in a theater. But I hope they're not just actors.
And then after the surgeon's done, everybody's like,
yeah. Anyway, okay. So glad you're here. Yes, I'm so glad you're here. Joe and I would have just told really lame jokes the whole time, I'm afraid. So, okay. Again, guys, I'm excited that you're here. Actually, I'm really excited that Dr. Saunders is here, because he's going to help us with these. So I just mentioned that we were going to talk about what to do when you're stuck. And of course, we talked about this topic, and Joe and Dr. Saunders had some funny memes to go along in our conversation. But I thought this was good. In fact, one of the little images or GIFs that they had sent was of a tow truck. And I love it, because it is kind of like when you get to that point, like I said, if you're doing the diabetes solution kit and all of a sudden you get to this point where the numbers aren't changing, you're not finding success, you can't figure out what's going on, you do need a little help. And so that's what we're dedicating this webinar to, is to help you through a few things. And I have learned these from you guys and from Dr. Saunders' teaching, but there are, 5 steps, I would say, that you should probably check when you aren't progressing, maybe I should say, in your type 2 reversal journey. And so we're going to dig into that. First, I just want to remind you that Dr. Saunders is not your doctor. Although he is awesome, everyone is different. And so the things that we are talking about today are for general purpose. Go back and chat with your doctor about these things. Hopefully that works out well. Anyway, here we go. Let's dig in. First of all, you guys, so many of you. I'm seeing a lot of new people and I'm seeing a lot of repeat people. So this is great. Welcome. If you're new here, will you do me a favor and just comment in the chat and say, I'm new? I can give you a little shout out because we like to see who's here. But if you do have questions as we go, will you type those in the Q&A? That's kind of the best place for us to manage those. Oops, I'm actually going to go live on Facebook as well here. So let's dig into this, Dr. Saunders. I'm going to ask some questions. So things that I have learned from Dr. Saunders. This is my webinar. These are the things that I think. Let's see if I'm right. Dr. Saunders will tell me if I'm not. This isn't really my webinar. I'm joking, but this is what I would guess from all the people who have written in over the past few years. Actually, is this our 4th year? Is that right? 2019. Wow.
Yeah,
okay.
August of 2019.
That's crazy. Yeah. That is crazy. Okay. These are some things that I have gathered. And Dr. Saunders may have his own list, but let's dig into this. I get a lot of emails. Here are some things that I have people check. Number one, if they're not seeing improvement, maybe in their blood sugar numbers, number one, I would just ask how their stress is. And Dr. Saunders, would that be something that you would say is true?
Yeah. Stress could be a number one. Yeah, that would be a simple thing. First thing to look at. If you're under a lot of stress, then that will affect your blood sugar definitely.
And what impact does it have? Like, how does that give us that result? Why is that keeping us in this holding pattern of getting lower blood sugar numbers?
So the stress hormones, especially cortisol, makes you resistant to insulin. So you have insulin coming, you make your insulin just like normal, but the cortisol blocks that insulin from being used. So now your blood sugar goes up automatically. If you think about it, it makes perfect sense. If you are really stressed and you haven't eaten in a while, you need your blood sugar to be up because your brain has to start functioning when you're under stress. And your brain can't use fat for energy. You have to use sugar. So if your body is resistant to insulin, then you can raise your blood glucose so that your brain will have more glucose to burn. So in a stressful situation, to get you out of a stressful situation or whatever you need, so your blood sugar will be higher. And you may need that, especially if you're trying to run away from something and you're physically exercising, you could drop your blood sugar a lot and then your brain won't work. So the stress response is a perfectly normal and natural response, and it's a good response. But if you're under a lot of like emotional stress and it's not a physical stress that you're like running or something, then your blood sugar just goes up. And it just stays up, and then it just goes up and stays up, and it just goes up, and so it's up all the time. And I've told the story about Julie. Most of you will probably remember it. She had uncontrollable blood sugar. Everything we did. She was on 4 medications, 200 units of insulin injecting every day, and her blood sugar was still always over 200. It never came down to even close to normal. So then one day it dropped to normal, and it was just normal, and we could not figure out why it was. I called her on the phone. She didn't know. She kept a record, brought it in, weeks of normal, off of all her medications and just normal. So from one day over 200 on a bunch of medications to perfectly normal on no medications. And what changed was her daughter moved out. So when she and her daughter were living together, they were fighting constantly. And as soon as her daughter moved out, they're in different places. They became best friends. It was like, "Hi, Mom, how you doing?" It's like, that's like they had to now they were apart and they had to connect periodically on the phone and all that. So there was just a stress response. When her daughter was living together and they were fighting, she was under stress all the time. And her blood sugar was always elevated, and it was just pure stress. It had nothing to do with her diet. In fact, I asked her, she did not change her diet. She was still drinking soda pops. Nothing changed, and yet her blood sugar was normal So her complete diabetes problem was just a stress response.
Wow.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
big.
amazing. Okay. Another reason or another thing to check if you're stuck is to review what you're eating. Can you touch on that a little bit? We have the different phases in the diabetes solution kit, but let's talk about phase 1. What are we eating in that phase, and what are some things to watch out for?
So in phase 1, you're on a low carbohydrate diet. So the glucose that you're allowed, which includes starch, and a lot of people don't. They look at sugar, but the label sugars should include starch, and it does. It includes carbohydrates. But there are good carbs and bad carbs, and there really is a difference. And so we do what's called net carbs, and net means you take the total carbohydrates, you subtract the fiber, because fiber is not digestible carbohydrates. Yes, it's carbohydrate, but it's not digestible. It's not made into sugar. Whereas all the starches and sugars, that is made into glucose, and that is energy for your body. So that's the part we want to keep at 20 grams. So, and the reason we take out the fiber is because we want you to eat fiber. You should eat fiber. More fiber is better. More and more and more is better. There's no downside to fiber. You could go to 100 grams of fiber a day and be better off than eating 20 grams of fiber a day. So, so the fiber is good. That's why we want to subtract that and just look at the energy part and say, okay, all the sugars and starches should not add up to more than 20 grams. And so a lot of people, they'll cheat a little bit. And another thing that gets people sometimes is they'll look at the 20 grams of carbohydrates and say, well, that means I can eat 20 grams of sugar a day. And that's, 4 grams per teaspoon. So that means I can have 5 teaspoons of sugar in my coffee or something like that. And then they don't count the carbohydrate, the other carbohydrates, the starches, for example, that are in the nuts and seeds and stuff that they're eating. So there are some carbs that we don't count, and they're okay, and they're things like spinach and lettuce and broccoli and celery, all those kinds of things they're definitely pure carbohydrates, but they're almost all fiber carbohydrates, and there's no sugar, hardly any sugar. So we allow those as free foods. You don't have to count the carbs in broccoli. So what trips people up is thinking they put 20 grams of sugar in their food or something like that, and not count the starches.
Yes. This is good. This is to piggyback on this, and this is what I would say is probably number 3. Artificial sweeteners. How can they really keep you from getting better?
This is a big deal. And when I was first researching this back a couple of years ago when we first talked about it, I was saying, well, I don't know that it's a big deal for everyone, but some people react to artificial sweeteners by making more insulin. Well, it turns out that as more research is done, it's a big deal. It makes you insulin resistant. So you don't want any artificial sweeteners. So before, when I was telling you guys, you can try it out, see if it affects you or whatever. You know what? In phase 1, don't have any artificial sweeteners at all, because the problem that what we're working with is not sugar. That's not the problem, even though, you're on a low sugar diet, but that's not the issue. The issue is insulin resistance. And so we want to lower insulin resistance. And those artificial sweeteners, the sweet taste causes you to release insulin. And so it makes more insulin resistance. So that's not a good thing.
Okay, let's take a little break in here and let's talk about insulin resistance. What exactly is happening in the body when you say insulin resistant?
Oh, it's really simple. It's a biological system, and biological systems have feedback mechanisms to determine how much of something to make. So you have a cell, and the cell needs sugar, needs glucose, right? Because without glucose, it can't make energy, make ATP, and all the energy it has to use to make all its stuff, all the stuff that it does, all the proteins and carbohydrates and fats and all the stuff that cells do, and the muscle cells that contract, all of that is done by proteins, and it has to have energy. And that energy, a lot of that energy comes from glucose. So there's a certain amount of energy that's fat, and then the glucose comes in, and that's what really gives you the instant energy, right? The immediate changes. So you have a cell, and it's making its proteins, and it's doing its thing, right? And then it runs out of energy, and it goes, oh my gosh, I need energy. So what does it do? It starts making a protein called insulin receptors. And so on that cell, these insulin receptors are really tiny compared to this cell like I have in my hand. And there's thousands of them all over the cell, so that wherever there's sugar in the blood, it goes like, oops, suck that in, suck. It's just sucking sugar into the cell like crazy, thousands all the time. But what if the cell slows down and it's not making very much protein? And then it's still got, all those thousands of receptors around the cell sucking sugar in, and it fills up, and it gets too much sugar in there. It starts making glycogen to store it. Okay, so now it's got storage. Now the storage units are all filled up in the cell. And so it's sitting there, and it's slowly making proteins, but it's not using up the sugar. And so it stops making insulin receptors. So now you have this cell that has only 100 receptors on it. So it's taking sugar in, but at a slow rate. Or what if it gets even more full of sugar and glucose, and it makes even fewer receptors. So now there's only 20 receptors on the outside. So now it's only bringing in an occasional glucose, right? Well, what if you keep eating and your cells are all like, they don't have any receptors on them, but you keep eating. And so you're bringing in all this sugar, glucose, but the cells aren't taking it into the cells. So the blood glucose starts going up, and it'll go up and up and up because the cells are going, nope, full, nope, don't need any glucose. It'll just talk to Mr. Hand. And so that's what insulin resistance is. It is your cells are full. The hotel is full. Sorry, we can't take any more people in. and that's what it's saying to all those glucose. Nope, can't take any more in. And so that's it.
Very interesting. I love his visuals. They help me so much to understand what's actually going on in the body. So good stuff. And it sounds funny to say like, hey, stop eating sugar, because even though you need sugar, it's a weird thing to wrap your mind around. And which is why we're doing these.
It's just like anything. You have enough, and then you have too much. Yeah. And so once you get too much, then you have to detox and cleanse. And that's really, if you look at it, phase 1 is just a cleanse and a detox. That's all it is.
Good stuff. Okay. All right, let's keep going. So what do you do when you're stuck? We've talked about stress. So you're going to want, these are your self-check things that you're going to want to do. So you may want to write these down so you can review these. Okay. So you're going to want to go back, check your stress levels, check and see what you're eating. See if some other things are getting into your mouth without
counting the calories,
without purpose, maybe.
Yeah.
Yes. Number 3, you're going to check artificial sweeteners. Okay. What else do I have on here? Okay, this one, I didn't know if we should put this on the list, but I want to see where exercise fits on this. Is exercise something we need to look at if we're struggling?
Absolutely. Yes. That's a wonderful thing to put on the list, because remember that your cells are full, and that includes your muscle cells. Your muscle cells store glycogen, which is kind of like a starch. It's a sugar molecules, and it's a storage form. And so when, marathon runners are carbo loading before a race, their carbo that they're loading is to make glycogen inside the muscle cells, so that they have a large store of glycogen, So they can run the entire 20, well, they won't run a full marathon on that. They'll still have to take in their glucose drink or whatever they're doing. But anyway, so the muscles will store this sugar, and it needs to be used up. So how are you going to use it up? It's really simple. Exercise. And exercise is a wonderful way for type 2 to get it under control. In fact, I have had people that have not changed their diet at all. They didn't go on phase 1. They go, no, I'm just going to exercise. And they took up an exercise program, and that alone got them off medications and with normal blood sugar. Wow. So yeah, you can do it with exercise. It's important.
Awesome. Let's talk a little bit about testing. This is something that we bring up quite often. And I know I've heard you say when people are stuck, or maybe the diabetes solution kit just isn't quite working for them. They've gone through these other steps. Maybe it's time to do a little bit more testing. Or do you recommend that people start with testing? What do you think?
Yeah, well, no, it depends. It depends on what you're stuck with. So people like, for example, Monty, we were talking or emailing about this issue, this exact issue of he says, I've been in the program for 6 months. I've been like faithfully following the program. I'm taking all the CinnaChroma. I got all the pills. I'm popping all these pills, and it just does not seem to be getting better. So the first thing I recommended is to look at his insulin levels, insulin C-peptide, glucose, and A1C. Those 4 tests give you an outline of what's going on. So the insulin level is the immediate insulin, and that changes minute to minute. So that's an immediate. And then the C-peptide gives you more of an average of how much insulin your pancreas is putting out. And then the glucose is like, that's changing minute to minute too. That's the immediate. And then the A1C is the average over about 3 months of what your blood sugar is doing. So those 4 numbers give you a good idea of your carbohydrate metabolism. So let's say it comes back where your insulin level is like high, your C-peptide is high, and your glucose and A1C are all high. So you've been following the glucose, you know that's high, but now your insulin's really high. Then you know something really important, and that is you are really resistant to insulin. So that insulin resistant in the high level means that you're making a lot of insulin, and some people do. People that have, like, I had a woman with PCOS, and she goes, why? You know, I eat the same thing as my friend, and she loses weight, and I gain weight. What the heck? And what it is she actually makes more insulin per amount of sugar that she eats compared to other people. And it's a common thing with PCOS. It's easy to get insulin resistance because of that excess insulin that's being produced. So some people do. And in which case, you have to look at it differently, and you have to say, okay, the 20-gram carb has to be, or in phase 1, your diet with your 20-gram carb has to be all done in 1 meal. So you eat 1 meal a day, because you need all of that extra time to use up all of that meal because you're so dang deficient. And that's what she ended up doing, is intermittent fasting. She has a 4-hour window of eating. So 20 hours she fasts every day. And that's been working for her. She's lost weight for the first time in a long time. I just saw her today. And so that's another thing to look at if you're testing your numbers and you know what the problem is. So let's take somebody now that has low insulin, their blood glucose is really high, and they have low insulin, and their C-peptide is less than 0.8, you know. So it's like, okay, with high blood glucose, your pancreas should be putting out a lot more insulin, and it's not. So that means that your pancreas is not working. So the problem isn't what you're eating. The problem is you actually have type 1 or 1.5 diabetes. Type 1 means you make no insulin. Type 1.5 is you make a little bit of insulin, but it's not enough to get your blood glucose down. So there's a couple of ways to handle that. One of them is, if you have really low insulin, is to use the Mastering Diabetes program. And you can go online and look at this. They'll have coaches for you and everything. And that's really an insulin resistance program where you can eat glucose, you can eat sugar, you can have pineapple, but you can't have any fat, because fat makes you resistant to insulin and you don't make enough insulin. So because you have very low levels of insulin, you got to use up that insulin that you've got really efficiently. And so you got to cut out all the fat. And actually is a good way of doing it. It works. I've had people do that, and I know it works. And I've even had type 1 diabetics do that, where they just go on no fat, and then they have to inject less often, less frequently, and less amounts of insulin. So that's another thing. So in other words, when you do the test, look at how different the program is going to be from if you're having high insulin, high glucose to low insulin, high glucose. Or what if it's the other way around, high insulin, low glucose, which I had a case of that too. And that is this putting out excess insulin. And that's dealing with that is completely different than dealing with the other things. So that's
so it really does seem like I hear so many people who are going in, finding out they have type 2, don't really understand what it is. There was no testing done to actually know exactly what was going on. And it would seem that a lot of people could really be struggling in reversing their type 2 without these tests or knowing what's actually happening.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
I just
see that a lot.
You're kind of getting
so that's what I told
diagnosis.
Monty. That's what I told Monty. I said, look, get the test first so we know what's going on. And then we can just clearly show you, okay, this is what's the next step to do.
Why aren't all doctors doing this?
Because we are told in medical school that you cannot cure illness, and don't even use that word, because if you use that word, you're a quack. So you can't cure illness. I'm serious. This is what we're told in medical school. So everything is all about treatment. Everything. Cancer is not about curing cancer. You can't cure cancer. You just treat it. You put it in remission. So treatment. Everything is about treatment. Diabetes. Hey, look, I diagnosed them with diabetes. Oh yeah, well, you got diabetes for life. And so here's the medication. You're going to be taking it for the rest of your life. And whatever you have, heart disease, whatever you have, glaucoma, it doesn't matter what it is. They're going to tell you that, oh yeah, you've got a diagnosis. This is a lifetime issue now. So that's what we're told in medical school. So how is a doctor ever going to figure this out? There's no way in the system to figure out. You have to get outside the system.
Or you get frustrated enough, you see enough people hurting and you want to make a change.
That's what I did. Exactly. That's wonderful.
That's good. We're thankful for that. And there are other doctors who are doing that. I don't want to discredit everyone. There are a lot of people who are doing this. So
more and more. It's getting bigger. I go to conferences. Right. I go to conferences for functional medicine. And it used to be we would have, 100, 300 people at a conference. Now we're like 5,000. It's like, there's a lot, and it's all doctors. There's acupuncturists and other, practitioners of functional medicine. It's getting a lot bigger.
Awesome. It's good to hear that. We have a lot of people that ask, how do I find a doctor like Dr. Saunders near me? And honestly, the best thing that I think to do is just to Google maybe functional medical doctors.
Medicine. Yeah.
In your area.
Yeah.
Okay. So things to check when you're stuck. Stress. Check what you're eating. Artificial sweeteners. Exercise. Testing. Anything else, Dr. Saunders, that we might be missing?
No, those would be all the first things to check when you're stuck.
Yeah. Okay. And I think there are other things too. Deficiencies. For example, we have our CinnaChroma product, that has really important vitamins, is a really important supplement for you guys, because a lot of people are deficient in vitamin D. And there have been people that just that alone has given them type 2 diabetes. And so there is some of that as well, which we've talked about CinnaChroma numerous times on this, so we don't have to dig into that fully. But I think probably those top 5 are the best place to start for most people. So I hope that helps you guys. We're going to dig into some of these questions now. I know a bunch of them have been coming in. So, okay. Oh, Monty's on the webinar. Hello, Monty. I'm glad you guys are here. Johnson Lee, what's up? Okay. Someone says, I hope we can record this. Don't worry. You don't have to. I did. And guess what? It'll be on YouTube for you. So you'll be able to find that at bartonwebinar.com. Okay, Roy is back. I'm just kind of scrolling through here. I was so into what Dr. Saunders was saying that I didn't read any of these questions yet. So, we have someone from Nigeria. Hello, Lawal. Welcome. I love this. Jeff says, tell me how to get off metformin naturally. And then there's another person that had said, we got a couple questions from Jeff, but another person who had said, actually it was Roy. He said, I switched to berberine from metformin and I've had good success. Something to think about. Read about the benefits of berberine on the internet. There's a lot of good stuff out there.
A lot.
We've done some webinars on that too. So something to think about. But I think Dr. Saunders would also tell you it's a real good place to start. If you're looking to make some big changes, start here. And you can find that at bartonwebinar.com. And you can use code webinar25, one word, and you will save 25%. Okay, let's see. Jeff says, I've been on CinnaChroma for about 3 weeks. I'm hoping this will help phase me off of metformin. Has anyone else been on CinnaChroma and had success? Any thoughts there, Dr. Saunders?
Okay, don't think that way. The father of modern medicine, his name was Sir William Osler, wrote a book. Wrote the initial textbook on medicine. He was trying to get people off patent medicines too. He was like, you know what? These patent medicines aren't good. They weren't good 100 years ago, and they're not good today. But this is 100 years ago. He wrote a textbook on medicine, and he said the difference. He was kind of frustrated with people thinking that the pills were going to fix their problem, and so he said the difference between man and animals is man's desire to take pills. So don't think the pills are the answer to it. Either one, either the metformin or the CinnaChroma. The CinnaChroma is a support so that you can use glucose properly in your body, because people who are deficient in chromium and vitamin D, vanadium, selenium, they don't use sugar very efficiently. So this is so that you don't have any blocks in your ability to use sugar. Yes, some people get on and say, oh, I took CinnaChroma and I was cured. Okay, fine. You probably had a chromium deficiency, and that can cause diabetes, type 2 diabetes, insulin resistance. But those are more rare. Really, look at it in terms of how can you eat, what foods you can change to that will keep your blood glucose low. And yes, getting off of metformin and taking berberine, that's what I would do. That's what I would do.
Awesome. Okay. We have Rosario on Facebook here asking if he's wondering what tests he could do to find out if he's type 1 or type 2.
That's it. Those 4 tests. So do the insulin level, C-peptide, and the glucose and hemoglobin A1C. So those are the 4 tests that'll give you a good picture of it. Now, if let's say you test and your insulin and C-peptide are 0, that means you are type 1 and you need insulin. So, and this is not a question mark or am I going to need insulin? No, you will need insulin. The question is how much insulin. So you could still do phase 1 of the program. You can still do everything we're talking about of the dietary stuff and exercise and all that. And you will need less insulin, which is actually good for you, because then you won't get the complications of diabetes. Because remember, the problem is insulin resistance, not glucose, not your blood sugar being too high.
My friend Olivia is on. Good to see you, Olivia. and she's sharing a concern about the prescription Ozempic. My nephew is taking this. He's a California resident. He's not diabetic, but is using the drug to curb his appetite. So far, it's working. Will there be a side effect on the body? Thanks, Olivia.
It will. Okay. Yes, it causes side effects. The question is how much. Some people have a minor issue with it. It slows the gastric emptying, so your stomach stays full longer, and some people get nausea from that. Some people don't like that. Occasionally, people will get gastroparesis. Paresis means paralysis. That means the stomach, stomach, just stops working, like nothing. And so nothing goes through, you eat, and it stays in your stomach. And then they test you 5 hours later, and the exact same thing that was there before is still there, and you're just sitting there in your stomach, and it's not moving. And that's a problem, of course. Yes, you're going to lose weight, but that's a real big problem. And those are rare, but that can happen. So the other thing is that it causes your pancreas to make more insulin. So it changes your insulin to glucagon ratio. And that makes you more insulin resistant. Why? Well, because remember those cells that have too much sugar in them and you're insulin resistant, and then you add more insulin, and they're finding every little, you only have 20 of them left, the insulin receptors, but you got a lot of insulin, so it's finding every single one and pumping more sugar into there, and then so the nucleus has to say whoa and stop even more. So now there's only 5 little insulin receptors on your whole cell. From thousands, so now you're more insulin resistant because you have more insulin to find those receptors when your cells are still full of glucose. So that's the problem with Ozempic, is it lowers the blood glucose at the expense of causing more insulin resistance. So let's say you didn't have diabetes, Ozempic could cause you to have diabetes, type 2 diabetes, insulin resistance. So that's one of the problems with yes, you may lose weight, but if you're losing weight because you're not eating as much, which that's what it does, then that is usually overcome pretty easily. So it can have side effects. I don't recommend it, but I have prescribed it, even though I've told people I don't recommend it, and they go, I want to try it anyway. Okay, fine. So for one, I've told you before, the first one I tried, it worked pretty well. Second one didn't help at all. Didn't lose weight on it. The third one, she actually lost about 10 pounds, but then she went out of the country, couldn't get it anymore. So.
Oh my goodness. All right, great question. John said he stopped metformin about a year ago. No more diarrhea. So that's awesome.
Awesome.
Yes. Roy said, I have been on the plan, which includes CinnaChroma, since 2020, and my diabetes numbers have dropped down into the normal range and have stabilized nicely. CinnaChroma is just one tool in the plan, but it's not the whole thing. Read the solution kit and follow the plan. Thank you, Roy. That's great.
That tells us everything we need to know right there.
Yes. I'm going to share this. Olivia sent me a really good recipe. She called it Wonderful Fiberful Salad. And she actually used, I think, white wine vinegar, which I think at one time I said I was using rice vinegar, but I was not using rice. I was using white wine vinegar, which is my new favorite. But I'm going to post this for everyone. I hope that's okay, Olivia. I'll put it in the chat. And this is just a really good recipe that she wanted to share. So I'm going to post that for everyone to see. Hold on. Actually, I'll put that on Facebook as well. Okay, there you go. All right. David says, how do you determine your ideal body weight?
Ideal body, you know what? I ask people, what is your ideal body weight? Because it's not clear. And if you look at body mass index, BMI, and that's all you look at, it's not really a good picture. If you look at the BMI from 1970s, and if you look at like the death rate to body mass index, as people gained weight, their death rate went up quite dramatically. But that curve has shifted so that the optimum body mass index today for some unknown reason is actually higher. So having a body mass index around 30, 25 to 30 is actually considered obese, but it's normal. Whereas in the 1970s and before that, the body mass index that was normal was 20. So my BMI is 20, but I think the ideal body weight is actually a little heavier than, I mean, as far as longevity goes, the ideal body weight is a little heavier than what your perfect body mass index would indicate.
All right. You heard it there, guys. All right. I love this. Lawal said, what are the best exercises to be doing to drop the sugar down?
Oh, if you do interval training, high intensity interval training, HIIT, that's a great way to do it, because you get your cells to the maximum output that you can. So you do just as hard as you can. And how hard you do it is going to be different than how hard I do it, because my maximum is different than your maximum. But you get up to your maximum and just hold it for 10 seconds, whatever it is. If you're running, then you sprint for 10 seconds. If you're doing sit-ups or push-ups or whatever, riding a bicycle, you get up as hard as you can for 10 seconds. And then do it light and easy for about 30 seconds. And then do it really hard for 10 seconds. And then light and easy for 30 seconds. And you only need like 12 minutes a day. So if you do HIIT, HIIT training, then you only need about 12 minutes a day. And that's a good way to do it. And anybody can afford 12 minutes a day. Take 12 minutes out of your day and do that. If not, if you're like just walking, for example, 30 minutes to an hour is a good walk. People who are jogging or running around 30 minutes would be generally good. Or just staying in phase 2, it's called, where you're breathing hard, but you can still talk through it. That sort of stage of exercise.
Oh boy, we're running out of time and there are so many questions. Okay. Greg says, I am no longer on meds or have high blood sugar. Now, just the opposite. I have to monitor my blood sugar with a CGM and eat throughout the day. I'm having problems going low, especially if I'm active. Any idea on how to moderate my glucose?
Okay, so this is an opposite problem. This is really interesting. So if you did those 4 tests, it would be very interesting to see what's happening here, because now you have insulin sensitivity. So you did it, you did everything right, and you're really sensitive to insulin, but you still have that excessive insulin output when you're eating. So it might be that you need to change your diet. And a continuous glucose monitor is probably one of the most useful things you're going to find for this, is because you're going to be able to see, oh, I see what's happening. My blood glucose is going up and then dropping low. And so it's going to be, it might be different than you think, and certain foods will do it. And we've had people come on and say, oh my gosh, I can eat bread, but I can't eat, what was that woman? She said, I can eat bread. My continuous monitor is telling me, no, I'm fine. But if I eat, I think it was French fries or something like that, it shot up super high. So, it might be different than you expect. And the CGM is probably going to be your best bet to be able to equilibrate and find out what the problem is.
I love this message here. Willow said, I had mashed potatoes and rice yesterday and ate at 8:30 p.m. and my blood sugar went up to 121 from 100. Honestly, I'm surprised it only went up that much. That's actually pretty good. And then she said, boo, no carbs for me. And the timing is no joke. That's good. At least you know. That's awesome. Okay, I'm at a 21-hour fast. I'm in 21 hours of a 72-hour fast. Any ideas how to get past the foggy food obsessed thinking?
Distraction.
Go to bed. Go to bed.
Yeah. All you can do is distraction. So when you're foggy and you're food obsessed, exercise is a great way to overcome that, because Exercise allows your body to make something called glucagon, and glucagon is going to tell your liver, oh, take that glycogen out and put it out there so that you can get some glucose into your brain, right? And so, and exercise is going to start that. So that would be a good place.
When you're doing all of these tests, Monty's wondering, do you go in fasting when you're doing your hemoglobin
Yes.
A1C?
All those tests should be done fasting, ideally in the morning, because that's when that cortisol release happens. And yeah.
Okay. Let's see. Jerry says I have cold feet and sometimes my left heel feels hot. Is Nervala good for this?
It might be. Cold feet can be neuropathy, and it can also be a circulation problem, which Nervala can help both of those. It might be a good idea to find out if you have a circulation problem. It's as easy as feeling your pulses. If you can feel the pulses in your feet, then it's not an arterial blockage or anything like that that's causing this. And then it's probably just the constriction of the blood vessels from the nerves. So it might be a nerve problem, in which case Nervala should help that. But Nervala can also help the circulation because the benfotiamine is for the small blood vessels. But if there's blockages in your arteries, then that's not going to work either. So yeah, if your feet are cold all the time, get an ultrasound. Have your doctor order an ultrasound and look at the arteries.
And Edwin says, are tingling and numbness in feet, toes, and fingers a good indicator of diabetes out of control?
No, it's a good indicator of insulin resistance and neuropathy. But you know what? It's really interesting to see how many people have neuropathy, nephropathy, kidney disease, and brain disease already before their blood sugar is even out of control. So they have normal blood sugar, but they have insulin resistance. So that's the problem.
Okay. Tim says, after many months away, oh, he's back. Okay. Thanks to fiber greens and cutting carbs as Dr. Saunders and you recommended, and not ever eating after 6 p.m., I am now down over 25 pounds, and fasting blood sugar this morning was only 100.
Wow, that's great. Good for you.
Amazing. That is awesome. So proud of you. That's so cool. Okay, we have a Zoom user here who says, finally, after 9 months, I found a virtual doc to complete my diabetic blood work. He had never done it before, but my C-peptide is low at 175. I must get it to at least 298 over 2350.
No. C-peptide 1.7 on a fasting specimen, that's great. It should be in the ones, or 0.8 to 1.5 or so is ideal. So no, that C-peptide is fine. What was the other number?
Well, insulin is 21.
Yeah, that's really high.
Okay.
That's really high.
A1C is 6.3 pre-diabetes.
Yeah, that's pretty close to diabetes.
And so they said, how can I be pre-diabetic? Anything I should do now? I'm 105 pounds. My blood work went to 3 different hospitals. Okay, so we're talking about Canadian numbers here. Toronto, ours, and Hamilton to get it done.
Yeah, okay. So what can you do? You're only 105 pounds, but you have insulin resistance, and that's the significant part of it. So lowering your insulin resistance means eating fewer meals. So you may have to eat more and avoiding carbohydrates, and especially avoid artificial sweeteners. Because artificial sweeteners, they're not adding calories, but they're adding insulin resistance. And that your problem is you need more calories and less insulin resistance. So I'm assuming 105 pounds means you're pretty light. I don't know how tall you are. Anyway.
Okay, let's see here. Oh my gosh, so many good things. Okay, Timothy also said, I found that by squeezing a lemon into water and adding monk fruit with it around 8 or 9 p.m. works great for minimizing hunger that can come back in the evening hours. Now, remember, monk fruit is an artificial sweetener technically, even though it might be natural. So,
yeah.
But Timothy's done with phase 1. So, take that however you want. Yeah. Okay. Let me see. Timothy also mentioned that his fiber greens got compensated at the airport. It was deemed dangerous because it was alive and it works, he said. Okay. Let's see. Bill wants to know, what results should I be seeing by taking Nervala?
If you're taking Nervala, you should have less neuropathy. You should have better circulation. But yeah, in other words, your nerves should improve. So somebody that has numbness, like in their toes, their feet are numb, then they start taking Nervala and they go, oh my gosh, it's getting worse. I'm getting pins and needles. I can't sleep at night. This is horrible. And unfortunately, when it wakes up, when something is numb, when the nerve is numb and it starts waking up, you're going to feel pins and needles. And so that's actually a good sign, meaning it's waking up. It's not a bad sign at all. It's not getting worse. It's actually getting better. It depends on what the problem is.
Jerry said, it took 90 days, but Nervala gave me great results from tingling, gone, sharp pain in feet, gone, and almost all numbness gone. Highly recommend Nervala.
Oh, cool.
That is awesome. Thank you, Jerry. Okay, more questions here. You know what? We've talked a little bit about various oils. Ronnie said, I heard that oil from grocery stores like olive oil and the other healthy oils are not pure. Are there certain brands that are good? What about avocado oil?
Oh, avocado oil is great. It's fine. It's fine. It's as good as olive oil. It's a lot more expensive though, we found out, because I was making some salad dressing. I asked my wife, get some avocado oil, I'll make some salad dressing. And she came back and she was like, wow, it's really expensive. Okay, so I actually looked at some research on this. And yes, Consumer Reports did a report on olive oils. And they found that most of the olive oils, even the imported Italian olive oils, were mostly canola oil. They had a little bit of olive oil and a lot of canola oil. And there were like 3 brands that were pure olive oil. And one of them was the Kirkland brand from Costco, of all things. That was unexpected. That's why I remember that one. Another one was one of the Italian ones, and I don't know, because I know some of them were not, and imported Italian ones were not pure olive oil. In fact, most of them weren't. But one of them was pure olive oil. I don't remember what brand it was. But if you look up the Consumer Reports olive oil thing, you may find that. But yeah, surprisingly, the big bottle, that's all we get. We get the one from Costco. It's pure olive oil.
Awesome.
I mean, yeah, pure olive oil, yeah.
Oh boy, so many things here. Okay, Ronnie says I have a high platelet count. Is this a problem? I donate platelets every 3 weeks or so.
A high platelet count is maybe an indicator of something. There are certain things that can cause high platelets, like inflammation in your body. And so if you have inflammation, that can be contributing to diabetes as well, or blood sugars being elevated from having more inflammation. And so looking at the underlying cause of why, and sometimes you need to look at, as much as going to a hematologist and looking at the bone marrow, for example, or blood smear, or having some extra tests done and looking at inflammatory markers and seeing that there's more inflammation, because high platelets can lead to more clotting, and more clotting, if you clot in your arteries and veins, that can cause problems. Like that's where heart disease and kidney disease and pulmonary embolus and those kinds of things come from, the clotting actually happening inside the blood vessels.
Wow. Johanna is asking if, when you're just getting started, let's say you're taking metformin and you want to start using berberine, do you just completely switch to berberine, or do you use them both?
I suppose you can use them both, but you just switch. They essentially do the same thing. They both increase cyclic AMP. They just work in a little different way. But yeah, you can just switch.
If you were using both, I would assume your numbers could get pretty low. So you may want to watch that.
It
Hopefully
doesn't lower. It doesn't. No, neither berberine nor metformin are going to lower your blood sugar to like hypoglycemic episodes. That wouldn't happen.
Okay. All right. Lowell is asking, does diabetes cause erectile dysfunction, and what do you do to reverse it?
Okay, so diabetes per se does not cause erectile dysfunction. However, diabetes can induce blood vessel problems, vascular problems that do relate to the to erectile dysfunction. So we've had a lot of people take supplements for that. And we did have a supplement for that. We do have a supplement for that, erectile dysfunction. But if you increase the nitric oxide, the available nitric oxide, then the erectile dysfunction can go away. But you also need to improve the blood vessel flow. So getting your blood sugar under control is a great idea because that improves the function of the arteries so that they can open and close properly. And then, so the nitric oxide, get your blood sugar under control. And then Nervala is the other one that helps restore the microvasculature. So those are the three things.
Okay, we're out of time. Dr. Saunders, thank you so much. We'll see you tomorrow on the Healthy Heart webinar.
Hasta mañana.
Yeah. Okay, a couple things. I can see some questions, you guys. You should be able to scroll back up in the chat and you can see all the things that I posted there. For example, all of those tests, but I'm going to post them again. And just a reminder, the tests that he recommends are hemoglobin A1C. That is the same as A1C, your glucose level, insulin level, and C-peptide. So those are the 4 tests. Again, I'm going to paste those right in the chat here. And then something else. Okay, so let's review what we talked about today. So if you are at a point where you're feeling kind of stuck in your diabetes solution kit journey, there are 5 things that we talked about today that Dr. Saunders would recommend. Number 1, check your stress. That was a big piece. Number 2, look over what you're eating. Number 3, check your artificial sweeteners. Number 4, exercise. And number 5, testing. And I did post those tests. So be sure to check those out. Again, you can find more information about these webinars at bartonwebinar.com. You will see links to the Diabetes Solution Kit. You can get this. This is the hard copy, but you can get the digital version and you can get that right away. This, you can pay a little bit extra to get the hard copy. I saw somebody ask about that. And if you want to just email customer support at bartonpublishing.com, they'll hook you up and help you figure out what you need to do to get this. So also, code webinar 25 saves you 25% on anything on the site. And remember that is one word. Webinar 25, one word, saves you 25% on everything. So, okay, anything else? Okay, I think I got most of those. I know that there were quite a few questions left in the Q&A. Can I still continue with supplements at the same time? Yes, you can. Okay, I think that's pretty much it for now. But we'll be back next week, guys. If you have not registered for our Healthy Heart webinar, that is tomorrow. So tomorrow, Thursday, 12 noon Central Time. And that is another free webinar where we focus on keeping your heart healthy, preventing cardiovascular disease, or maybe you've already been diagnosed and you really want to know what you can do to move forward. And that's what we talk about on that webinar. Dr. Saunders will be back, and it's really good, very informative. So if you want to sign up for that, you can do that at bartonwebinar.com. Otherwise, I will see you guys next week. Tell a friend, and we're so glad that you guys came on today and asked such great questions. I hope you guys find just a ton of value in this. I know I do, and I appreciate all of you. So thank you, and we will see you next week. Bye-bye.